whatever is sitting on your counter. Now, imagine that stuff, your food, is actually one of the most powerful medicines that exist on the planet. Not existing in a pill bottle, not a pharmacy, just food. I know that sounds like something someone says right before they try to sell you an overpriced green powder, but stay with me because what we're talking about today is not a wellness trend. It is not a fad. It is 2,000 years of human history and some of the most exciting science happening right now. In 2026, that is completely changing how doctors and researchers think about what we eat. Welcome to the Wellness Shift. I'm your host, Kim Larson, and today we're kicking off a two-part series on one of the hottest health topics of the year, the food as medicine movement. A panel of 58 health experts surveyed by US News and World Report ranked this as one of the top two most important health trends of 2026. This is not a fad. By the end of this episode, you're going to understand why. So let's go. The story starts 2,400 years ago. To understand why this idea is so powerful right now, we need to go way back. We're talking ancient Greece around the year 4000 BCE, about 2,400 years ago. There was a doctor named Hippocrates. You've probably heard about him in school. You have probably called he is called the father of medicine. Doctors still reference the Hippocratic Oath today, but here is something that does not get talked about enough. Hippocrates had very strong opinions about food. He is credited with one of the most quoted phrases in all of medicine. Let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. Now, for full transparency, historians say the exact phrase may not appear word for word in his surviving writings, but what is documented is that in the Hippocratic Corpus, a collection of about 60 medical books written around that time, diet was treated as one of the most important medical tools available. Hippocratic doctors were required to understand their patients' diets, where they lived, how they slept. Food was medicine. End of story. So here's a detail I love. Researchers who studied those ancient medical texts found that out of 44 medicinal plants described, 33 of them were also used as food. There was no hard line between this is food and this is medicine. They were the same thing. And it was not just the ancient Greeks. Think about traditional Chinese medicine used food based on its effects on the body's energy. They're big about your qi, prescribing specific foods to heal specific problems. Indigenous cultures across Africa, the Americas, and the Pacific Islands had deep generational knowledge of which plants and foods healed which conditions. This knowledge was passed down for thousands of years. For most of human history, across almost every culture on earth, food was medicine. There was this default assumption, then something changed. And honestly, it did not go well for us. Think about how many people are sick today. Today's episode is brought to you by Larson Nutrition. If this episode has you thinking about eating better, Larson Nutrition is a perfect place to start. There are tons of healthy recipes and healthy insights. Search any one of the blogs that are on there or any kind of recipe if you're looking for something that you normally like to eat, like pizza or SpaghettiOs or hot dogs or meat. Look at all the recipes that are in there. Or if you're a vegan, food nutrition advice and products that fit your actual life. So no gimmicks, no confusing labels, just clean, honest nutrition. Check them out at larsonnutrition.com. That's LARSON nutrition.com. So, segment I want to talk about is how we lost that plot. So, what happened? If humans understood for thousands of years that food heals, why are we sicker than ever? two things shifted. First, modern medicine got really good at specific treatments: antibiotics, vaccines, surgery. These were genuine miracles and they saved millions of lives. But it also meant the medical world got laser focused on drugs for disease. You got a problem? Take this pill. Now, that all started with the Rockefeller family hundreds of years ago when they were making their millions or billions on gasoline. And they started promoting petroleum based medicine and medical care. And they funded university medical schools and hospitals that would actually use these petroleum based products. Now, petroleum is not healthy for you, right? This is gasoline. This is what fuels your car, not your body. So you right every time you got a problem, it's not take this pill. And nutrition, the study of how food affects health, got pushed to the side. So here's a number that floors me every time I say it out loud. Medical schools in the United States spend less than 20 hours out of a 4-year degree teaching nutrition. Doctors don't know nutrition like I do, or like a lot of nutritionists, or like Mark Hyman, or Amy Shaw, or Peter Attia, or numerous other people that are out there that are teaching food is medicine. Less than 20 hours is crazy for the one thing every single human being does 3 or more times a day, every single day for their entire life. But the second shift is the one that really did the damage, and it starts with World War II. During the war, the US military needed food that could travel long distances without going bad. They needed cheap, shelf stable rations with high calorie counts. So scientists went to work developing freeze drying, chemical preservatives, new packaging, and ways to make food taste decent even after being processed heavily. Now, when the war ended, those same techniques got applied to the civilian food supply. In the 1950s and 60s, you suddenly had convenient, cheap, tasty food available everywhere. Americans loved it. The problem is that food was not really good anymore. It's not really food. It's not real food anymore, right? Not in the way that Hippocrates meant. It's not whole nutritious food like vegetables and proteins, legumes, beans, lentils. Researchers today call it ultra processed food. In plain terms, packaged snacks, sodas, frozen pizzas, sweetened cereals, instant soups, foods made in factories. Like even our beef is in factories now, our pork, our chickens are in factories. They're in these huge houses and they're just feeding them and feeding them and feeding them gourds of corn and processed foods. And then you eat that meat and that is making you sick. Do you see how some of these chickens are coming out after they've been born to chickens that are fed all this processed foods? Right? And we wonder why there's all these kids that are coming out with, autism and, uh, all kinds of diseases. This diabetes and high blood pressure and heart disease, the number 1 killer in the world. These, instant soup foods made in factories loaded with salt and sugar and fat and unhealthy fat and designed specifically to make you want more. They know how the science works for your brain. So they make it ultra palatable so that when you and it doesn't fill you up. So you have one, oh, you want another one and you want another one, right? You can have a spaghettio or a ravioli and then you want another one and then you want another one. Scientists describe them as hyper palatable, meaning they're literally engineered to be harder to stop eating. So here's where the data gets alarming. These statistics came from a massive 2024 review that looked at 45 different studies covering nearly 10 million people. 10 million. 50% of people have a higher risk of dying from cardiovascular disease if you regularly eat a lot of ultra processed food. This is described as convincing evidence across nearly 10 million study participants. 48% have a higher risk of anxiety disorders linked to a diet high in ultra processed foods. 55% have a higher chance of obesity among people who eat heavily ultra processed diets. And 40% of people are at higher risk of developing type 2 diabetes. 21% have a higher chance of dying early from any cause of all, from any cause based on data from nearly 10 million people. So this means heart disease, diabetes, fatty liver disease, hypertension, you name it, all cause mortality is increased 21% from eating ultra processed foods. No, those numbers were published by Stanford Medicine and referenced by the American Heart Association. And in late 2025, more than 40 leading health researchers published a 3-part series in The Lancet, one of the most respected medical journals on the planet. And they concluded that ultra processed foods are a leading cause of chronic disease worldwide. In the US and UK, ultra processed food has made up more than 50% of the average person's diet for 20 straight years, more than half of everything we eat. And we wonder why we're sick? Here's the good news, and there is genuinely good news coming. Science has now caught up to what Hippocrates figured out 2,400 years ago. And what it is finding is changing everything. Let's take a quick break, and I want to tell you about Larson Botanicals. We just talked about how certain plants and whole foods carry powerful compounds that fight inflammation and support your gut. Well, Larson Botanicals has been doing exactly that, harnessing the power of botanicals in high quality organic ingredients. And if you want the benefits we've been talking about, but need a little extra support, Larson Botanicals is worth a look. Visit larsonbotanicals.com. That's LARSON botanicals.com. And you can learn more about this in the podcast. So the science fights back. So let's talk about what is happening right now in nutrition science, because the research coming out in 2025 and 2026 is genuinely exciting. It's I'm going to break it into like 3 areas. No PhD required, I promise. The gut is running the show. You've probably heard the term gut microbiome, but let me explain what it actually means in plain English. Right now, inside your digestive system, there are trillions, that's with a T, of tiny little organisms, mostly bacteria. And for a long time, scientists thought of them as basically passengers, not not doing much. We know how they are. We now know they are one of the most important systems in your entire body. Researchers call the gut microbiome a metabolic organ. That that means it works like an organ, like your heart or your eyes or your brain, the way your heart or your liver does, actively managing your health around the clock. It helps you absorb nutrients. It controls inflammation in your body. It affects your immune system. And this one is wild. It directly influences your brain. In December 2025, a landmark study was published in Nature, one of the most prestigious science journals in the world. And the researchers looked at the gut microbiome of 34,000 people in the US and the UK. They analyzed, what these people were eating and what diseases they had. And they identified specific types of gut bacteria that were linked to better health and specific types linked to worse health. They called it the Zoe Microbiome Health Ranking 2025. And what this means for you in plain English is the food you eat directly shapes what bacteria thrive in your gut. And the bacteria in your gut directly shapes your health. Eat more whole plants, fiber, and fermented foods. You grow the good bacteria. Eat a lot of ultra processed food. You starve them out and you grow the ones linked to inflammation and disease. Now, here's the key mechanism. When you eat fiber, the kind found in vegetables, beans, whole grains, and fruit like lentils, your good gut bacteria eat it. They ferment it. And as a byproduct, they produce compounds called short chain fatty acids. And those compounds help control your blood sugar. They reduce inflammation. They strengthen the lining of your intestines. They're literally running part of your health at a cellular level. Fiber from beans and vegetables is not just roughage. It is fuel for a system that is quietly managing your well-being around the clock. Food and your mental health. This is the one that surprised me most when I did the research. The strongest evidence for food as medicine might not be for physical conditions. It might be for mental health. We all know that eating a bag of chips on the couch does not make you feel great emotionally. And most of us have had the experience of eating a really good fresh meal and feeling clearer, more energized, more settled. We have always, kind of known this is on some level, right? What we did not have until recently was the hard science to prove it. Now we do. The most studied dietary pattern in nutrition science right now is called the Mediterranean diet. And here's the short version. It is the way people ate traditionally in countries like Greece, Italy, and Spain. Lots of vegetables, lots of olive oil, fish, legumes, beans, lentils, whole grains, fruit, not much red meat, almost no processed food, no bologna, no, processed deli meat. People think, "Oh, this one's healthier." No, they're not. They take up meat and salt and fat and churn it all up in a churner, and then they pack it all together so that they can slice it. There's nothing natural about that. Do not eat deli meats. The sandwich generation of our parents, oh god, so disgusting. Researchers have been studying this diet for decades, and the findings on mental health are remarkable. A 2024 review of gold standard randomized trials found that people who switched to a Mediterranean style diet significantly reduced their depressive symptoms, not slightly, significantly, across mild, moderate, and even severe depression cases. A 2025 systemic review confirmed that diet quality directly influences both the start and the severity of mental disorders. And a February 2026 study published in Frontiers in Nutrition looking at anti inflammatory diets and mental health concluded that Mediterranean style eating is associated with clinical level improvements in depressive symptoms. Clinical level. This is the kind of improvement a doctor notices from food. It is not just depression, brain health, memory, dementia risk. A January 2026 systemic review looked at the MIND diet, a version of the Mediterranean diet specifically designed for brain health. And the conclusion? The MIND diet can enhance cognitive health and significantly reduce the risk of dementia, anxiety, and depression because of its antioxidant and anti inflammatory properties. And why does food affect your brain? There are three main pathways the science has identified. First, inflammation. The Mediterranean diet is naturally anti inflammatory. It is full of foods that calm the immune system down, and chronic inflammation has been directly linked to depression, anxiety, and cognitive decline. Lower the inflammation, and research shows you lower the symptoms. Second, and this has genuinely blew my mind, about 90% of the body's serotonin is produced in the gut, not the brain, the gut. Serotonin is the chemical most associated with your mood and well being. And when your gut is healthy, your brain chemistry benefits. When your gut is struggling, when you are feeding it processed food and starving it of fiber, your brain feels it too. And third is sleep. A 2025 meta analysis found that people who follow a Mediterranean diet sleep better, and poor sleep makes anxiety and depression worse. So, eating well improves sleep, which improves mental health, which makes it easier to keep eating well. It is a positive loop. You can literally fight inflammation with your fork. So, let me talk about inflammation for a moment because it keeps showing up in every single study we look at. Inflammation is not always bad. If you cut your finger or inflammation is part of how your body heals it, right? How that is healthy. The problem is what researchers call chronic low grade inflammation. When your immune system is in constant low level state of alert, day after day, year after year, like a smoke alarm in your house that never turns off. This type of ongoing inflammation is now understood to drive an almost unbelievable list of conditions: heart disease, type 2 diabetes, obesity, depression, Alzheimer's disease, and even certain cancers. Chronic inflammation is working against you on almost every health front simultaneously. And what causes it? Ultra processed food, sedentary lifestyle, poor sleep, chronic stress. What fights it? Exercise and real food. This morning I got up, I jumped on my jumper, I lifted some weights, I did some bicep curls, some shoulder raises, some shoulder presses, and then I did jumping on the ground, on the hard ground because I have osteopenia. This happens for a lot of women. If you haven't had your bone scan done and you're post 40, you need to get your bone density checked. And with osteopenia, that's the early stages of bone frailty. And you can reverse it by lifting weights and doing jumping to put pressure on your bones. Now, let's talk about specific foods that have been identified that reduce inflammation at a chemical level inside your body. Polyphenols. They're found in deeply colored fruits and vegetables, olive oil, dark chocolate, 70% plus, and green tea. These reduce the production of inflammatory chemicals, and omega 3 fatty acids found in fatty fish like salmon, in walnuts, and in flaxseed directly lower inflammation markers in the blood. Now, I take an omega-3 supplement every day. And now I take Zinzino oil, or you can also take, there's some other ones that are more affordable that you can take in a pill form if you don't want to take a shot of oil. And it does not taste fishy at all. If you're getting omega-3s and you're burping up the fish taste, that it means it's rancid. Stop taking it. You got to get Swanson is a really good brand. You can find it at I don't know if you can find it at the grocery store, but Swanson's a really good brand. You can buy it at their website, look for their sales. You can buy it on Amazon. You can buy it at Walmart. You can buy it at several places. And fiber feeds the gut bacteria that produce the anti inflammatory compounds we talked about a few minutes ago. In 2025 and 2026, nutritional researchers started pointing to a dietary pattern called Mediterranean Plus. It takes the classic Mediterranean diet and adds extra emphasis on deeply colored plants for polyphenols, fermented foods like yogurt, kimchi, and kefir for gut health, and prebiotic rich foods like onions, garlic, leeks, and oats that feed the good gut bacteria. And I'm not talking instant oats with lots of sugar in it, like your brown sugar or your apple cinnamon. That is not the kind of oats. You need to get whole oats or steel cut oats. Some versions also suggest a 10 to 12-hour eating window. Now, I believe in fasting. It heals our gut, it heals our body. If you do a 72-hour fast like I did in early in right after the holidays, that will reset your body, it'll reset your gut, it will put you into ketosis. It'll actually get you into autophagy, and it will help clear up dead senescent cells that are in your body. As we age, we accumulate more and more dying and dead cells in our body, and these turn into cancer, they turn into metabolic problems. So, fasting is really a healing benefit to everybody. You're not killing yourself, you're not starving yourself. Think about cavemen. You think they had a refrigerator, you think they had McDonald's around the corner. They didn't have any of this. They had to hunt for their food, they had to forage for their food, and sometimes they didn't eat for several days. Now, I highly recommend that you get electrolytes while you're fasting because we've learned more about when you're fasting, your body strips the electrolytes from your body, and it's really important that you get them. So, say you finish eating by 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. Do not eat again until 7 or 9 a.m. It's not a crash diet. This is just called intermittent fasting. Just giving your body time to rest and repair overnight. This is not a celebrity endorsed fad. This is what the evidence is pointing to in 2026 as the most well supported dietary pattern for long term health. Now, I want to talk about real studies and real results. I want to walk through a few actual studies now because I think hearing real numbers from real research makes all the difference. These are not opinion pieces. These are clinical trials and peer reviewed studies published in major medical journals. So let's talk about the heart failure food trial, JAMA Cardiology, April 2026. In April 2026, researchers at UT Southwestern Medical Center published a study in JAMA Cardiology, one of the most respected cardiology journals in the world. They called it the Food HF trial. They took 150 patients who had just been released from the hospital after a serious heart failure event. When those patients went home, researchers divided them into three groups. One group received medically tailored meals, home delivered meals designed specifically for their condition by a registered dietitian. One group got fresh produce boxes delivered to their homes. The third group received standard care, some dietary counseling, and nothing else. The result? Provided real food directly to the patients was feasible, well received by patients, and improved their quality of life. The researchers said this builds a foundation for larger studies treating food as a formal part of medical care. A top US academic medical center published in a top journal saying food belongs in medical care. That tells you how far this conversation has moved. Produce prescriptions for diabetes. Researchers modeled what would happen if doctors literally prescribed fruits and vegetables to food insecure type 2 diabetes patients and gave them financial support to buy them across all 50 states. They based the model on data from 13 real produce prescription programs that had already been run. And those real programs had already shown something remarkable. Patients who received produce prescriptions ate nearly a full extra serving of fruits and vegetables per day. Their body mass index dropped by zero point 0.6 points, and their hemoglobin A1C, the key measure of blood sugar control, dropped by zero point 0.8 points. This is clinically significant. Doctors get excited about what kind of that kind of change. And it happened not from a new drug, it happened from a prescription for fresh vegetables. Now, Maryland's new medically tailored meals program in April 2026, this just happened. This one was announced literally days before we recorded this up before today. The Maryland Department of Health just launched a state medically tailored meal program providing dietitian designed meals to patients with specific health conditions. The headline number from the data cited at launch medically tailored meals led to a 27% reduction in hospital charges. 27% from food, from meals designed by a dietitian and delivered to the people at home. Hospitals are expensive. Emergency rooms are expensive. If you can keep people out of the hospital by feeding them properly, you are saving enormous amounts of money and taxpayer dollars and an enormous amount of human suffering. Stanford Medicine ran a program called Recipe for Health in California, providing fresh produce and nutrition education to patients dealing with chronic diseases like diabetes, heart disease, and high blood pressure. The results were strong enough that California lawmakers used the findings to create a policy allowing Medicaid dollars, public health care money, to be spent on food for patients with nutrition related chronic disease. Taxpayer healthcare money being spent on vegetables because the science showed it worked. So before we move further, one more word from our sponsor. You just heard about fiber, fermented foods, and polyphenols. Here's the honest truth. Most of us are not getting enough of these in our daily diet. And that's where Larson Nutrition and Larson Botanicals comes in. LarsonNutrition.com has whole food based support to fill the gaps. All kinds of great recipes. You can find affordable recipes. You can find very filling recipes. Rice and beans is a complete protein. If you're trying to save money, that is a complete protein. Get tuna in a can, chicken in a can. Um, Try to eat whole proteins. And Larson Botanicals has botanical skincare line and non-toxic candles backed by real science and not hype. So you can check out larsonnutrition.com, Larson, 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 nutrition.com or Larson botanicals.com. All right. So let's step out of the lab and talk about your real life, your actual kitchen, your actual grocery list. Here's the truth. The science is not asking you to do anything extreme. It is not asking you to eat only salad forever. The dietary patterns with the strongest research behind them, the Mediterranean diet, Mediterranean plus, whole food eating, are not radical. They're actually pretty simple. They just require thinking about food a little differently, planning your meals, prepping them, grocery shopping on Friday night after work, not complaining about, oh, I'm just tired and I want to go watch TV. If you have time for TV, you have time to cook. If you have time to sit on your cell phone and look at social media, you have time to cook. You have time to grocery shop. You have time to meal plan. You have time to cook a whole chicken, rip up the meat, put it into and cook the bones, make it into a bone broth. Throw in frozen vegetables, cook that up, put in some spices, your favorite kind. I like it a little spicy, some maybe red pepper flakes and some basil and some garlic and onions, celery, carrots, whatever you have, peas, carrots, whatever you have. Potatoes, beans. Beans are great. Beans are affordable. Soak them overnight. They are an amazing food. So instead of asking what sounds good right now, you start asking what do I want this food to do for me? That shift is thinking is where everything starts. Here are 6 things the research consistently supports in plain English. Load your plate with deeply colored vegetables and fruit, leafy greens, berries, beets, red peppers, purple cabbage, all colors of carrots. The color comes from polyphenols and antioxidants that fight inflammation directly in your body. Eat fermented foods, yogurt, kefir, kimchi, sauerkraut, kombucha. You gotta look for the low sugar kombucha, though. I don't promote kombucha too often because it is so high in sugar. So really have to look for a low sugar or just avoid it altogether. Do kimchi, kefir, plain Greek yogurt or plain yogurt, sauerkraut. They bring beneficial bacteria into your gut. The 2025 science is very clear. A diverse gut microbiome is one of the strongest markers of good overall health. And eat more fiber. Most Americans get about 15 grams of fiber a day. The recommended minimum is 25 to 38 grams. Your gut bacteria are starving. Feed them with onions, garlic, oats, beans, lentils, asparagus, and bananas. You do not have to be perfect, but every time you choose a whole food over a packaged one, you're making a real decision for your long term health. The data is too consistent to ignore. Salmon, sardines, mackerel, 2 to 3 times per week. Omega-3 fatty acids are among the most studied anti-inflammatory compounds in existence. They work. I get my sardines from Costco or from Trader Joe's. They come in olive oil, get them in olive oil. I actually drain the olive oil off because the olive oil has gotten a fishy taste to it. My husband eats it. He loves it. But I put in some ancho chili seasoning. I put in some garlic salt. I put some lemon juice or lime juice and I cut it all up and I eat it. There are studies out there about if you eat sardines straight for 5 days. So maybe you have it for 2 meals a day or breakfast, lunch, and dinner. All you eat is sardines. However you want to eat them. Eat them for 5 days and this will help clear up your body and help fight your disease because the omega 3s are amazing for your body. They are among the most studied anti-inflammatory compound in existence. They work. Try to finish eating by 7 p.m. and not eat again until 7 to 9, even, 10 or 11 or 12 the next day. A 10 to 12-hour window gives your gut bacteria time to rest and repair. Not extreme, just strategic. None of that is complicated. None of it requires an expensive subscription or a special program. It is food, real food. The kind humans ate for thousands of years before the food industry decided that convenience mattered more than health. The wisdom was always there. Science is only now catching up to explain why it worked. So, a quick recap of what we covered today. 2,400 years ago, Hippocrates understood that food and medicine are not two separate things. They are the same thing. And cultures around the world shared that understanding for thousands of years after him. Then the industry food era happened. We got ultra processed food, we got chronic disease, and the medical world got so focused on pharmaceutical solutions that it forgot about the most basic tool of all, what we eat every single day. Now, the science is fighting back and it is winning. The gut microbiome research, the Mediterranean diet, mental health trials, the produce prescription programs, the 27% hospital cost reduction from medically tailored meals, all of it is pointing in one direction. What you put on your plate has a direct, measurable, and often reversible impact on your health, physical health, mental health, brain health. And here's what gives me real hope. This knowledge is not locked behind a patent. It does not cost $300 a month. It does not come with a 15-page side effect list. It is in your grocery store. It is at your farmer's market. It is in your kitchen right now. It has always been there. We just need to remember that it matters. Now, I'm going to have an episode 2 on this where we're going to take all of this into real world. We look at the policy revolution happening right now, states writing food as medicine into Medicaid, the Rockefeller Foundation study projecting $45 billion in economic activity from scaling these programs, the insurance debate, and the future of personalized nutrition, where your food recommendations are tailored to your specific gut microbiome profile. Episode 2 is where the money moves and the systems change. If you're in business, in healthcare, in policy, or you simply eat food every day, that episode is going to be essential listening. Thank you for being here today. If this episode meant something to you, share it with one person who needs to hear it. Leave a review on Apple or Spotify. It genuinely helps other people find us. And check out today's sponsors at larsonnutrition.com and larsonbotanicals.com. And both links are in the show notes. I will see you in episode 2. Eat well, live well, and this is the Wellness Shift.